On a desolate planet veiled in a perpetual twilight, under a violet sky resonating with eerie echoes, fear reigned supreme. This was the dominion of the KRYLL, a malevolent alien species notorious for their ruthlessness. Among their many human captives, none possessed the resilience of Ilara. With captivating emerald eyes and raven hair cascading like a silken waterfall, Ilara, abducted from her home world during a brutal raid, languished in a frigid, damp cell. A single flickering bulb cast long, dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. She huddled on the cold floor, fighting to maintain her composure, her mind besieged by the horrific tales of KRYLL torture. Determined to resist their cruelty, she embraced her knees, inhaling deeply. "I won't yield," she murmured, clinging to the memory of her family on Earth, the radiant sun, their shared laughter, and her mother's soothing voice, a fragile solace that nurtured a flicker of hope. Abruptly, the heavy cell door groaned open, bathing the room in harsh light. 2 KRYLL guards entered, towering figures with ashen skin and teeth that gleamed menacingly. Their guttural language grated on Ilara's ears. Her pulse quickened as they advanced, bracing herself for the inevitable. "Prepare for the trials," one snarled, his eyes alight with malevolence. The trials, she knew, were a twisted form of amusement, a means to torment their human prisoners, pushing them to their limits, shattering their spirits. Ilara clenched her fists, refusing to betray her fear. Just as the KRYLL guards reached for her, the ground trembled violently, and the cell door exploded inward. A human figure burst into the room, Kale, a soldier dispatched to rescue her. Tall and imposing, clad in gleaming dark armor, his eyes blazed with unwavering resolve. "Ilara, come with me," he commanded. Disbelief warred with relief as Ilara scrambled to her feet. "You found me," she cried, hope piercing through her terror. Kale swiftly assessed the situation. The KRYLL guards redirected their attention to him. "Back off," he warned, shielding Ilara. He moved with predatory grace, poised for combat. The KRYLL hissed, their razor-sharp claws extended. Without hesitation, Kale launched his attack, tackling one guard and hurling him against the wall. The other lunged, but Kale's reflexes were faster. He evaded the attack and delivered a powerful kick that sent the creature sprawling. Ilara watched, awestruck by his speed and skill. The KRYLL were formidable, but Kale's strategic mind and agility gave him the advantage. "Come on, Ilara, we have to go," he urged, glancing back. Fear giving way to courage, Ilara followed him out of the cell and into the labyrinthine corridors of the KRYLL base. The air was cold and oppressive, but hope flickered within her. She was no longer alone. As they fled, the KRYLL's enraged shouts echoed behind them. Ilara's heart hammered, but Kale's encouragement spurred her on. "You can do this. Stay close." They navigated twisting passages, the sounds of pursuit growing louder. Adrenaline coursed through Ilara. She was running for her life, a powerful, exhilarating feeling. She'd always been told humans were weak, yet here she was, escaping with a courageous soldier at her side. Reaching a large door, Kale flung it open and pulled Ilara into a seemingly empty chamber. "We need a plan," he gasped, panting. "If we can reach the ship, we can escape." Ilara surveyed the room, filled with unfamiliar machinery and screens. She felt a pang of uncertainty, but Kale's presence bolstered her resolve. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice steadier. "Disable the security system." "That will buy us some time," he replied, his eyes scanning the controls. Ilara watched his fingers fly across the buttons, admiration swelling within her. He wasn't merely a soldier, he was a hero. And in that moment, she realized she wanted to be strong, too. On a bleak planet perpetually shrouded in twilight, beneath a violet sky filled with strange resonances, fear held absolute sway. This world belonged to the Zarth, a cruel alien species infamous for their merciless nature. Among their numerous human prisoners, none possessed the strength of spirit of Lyra. With captivating sapphire eyes and long, dark hair flowing like a silken river, Lyra, stolen from her home during a savage attack, was confined to a cold, damp cell. The rough-hewn walls were dimly illuminated by a single flickering light bulb, its unsteady glow creating dancing shadows. She sat huddled on the cold floor, struggling to maintain her composure, her mind plagued by the horrifying stories of Zarth cruelty. Determined to defy their brutality, she drew her knees to her chest and took a deep breath. "I won't break," she whispered, clinging to the cherished memories of her family on Earth, the warmth of the sun, the joy of shared laughter, and the soothing comfort of her mother's voice, a fragile solace that nurtured a small ember of hope. Suddenly, the heavy cell door screeched open, flooding the room with harsh light. 2 Zarth guards entered, towering figures with sickly green skin and teeth that glinted menacingly. Their guttural speech assaulted Lyra's ears. Her pulse quickened as they approached, steeling herself for what was to come. "Prepare for the games," one of them growled, his eyes burning with malice. The games, she knew, were a perverse form of entertainment, a way to torment their human prisoners, pushing them to the breaking point, crushing their will. She clenched her fists, refusing to show any sign of weakness. Just as the Zarth guards reached for her, the ground shuddered violently, the cell door exploding inward. A human figure burst into the room, Marcus, a soldier sent to rescue her. Tall and strong, clad in gleaming black armor, his eyes blazed with unwavering resolve. "Lyra, we're leaving," he commanded. Disbelief mingled with relief as Lyra scrambled to her feet. "You found me," she cried, hope piercing the veil of terror. Marcus quickly assessed the situation. The Zarth guards turned their attention to him. "Stay back," he warned, shielding Lyra. He moved with a predator's grace, poised for combat. The Zarth hissed, their razor-sharp claws extended. Without a moment's hesitation, Marcus launched his attack, tackling one guard and slamming him against the wall. The other lunged, but Marcus's reflexes were lightning fast. He evaded the attack and delivered a powerful kick that sent the creature sprawling. Lyra watched, amazed by his speed and skill. The Zarth were formidable, but Marcus's strategic thinking and agility gave him an edge. "We need to go, Lyra," he urged, glancing back at her. Fear transforming into courage, Lyra followed him out of the cell and into the maze-like corridors of the Zarth base. The air was cold and heavy, but hope flickered within her. She was no longer alone. As they fled, the enraged shouts of the Zarth echoed behind them. Lyra's heart hammered, but Marcus's encouragement spurred her on. "You're doing great. Stay close." They navigated the twisting passages, the sounds of pursuit growing louder. Adrenaline coursed through Lyra's veins. She was running for her life, a potent, exhilarating sensation. She'd always been told humans were frail, but here she was, escaping with a courageous soldier by her side. They reached a large door and Marcus quickly punched in a code. The door hissed open, revealing a vast room filled with strange machinery. In the center stood a small, gleaming ship. "There!" Marcus exclaimed, his eyes lighting up with hope. "That's our way out." Lyra's heart soared at the sight. Freedom was so close she could almost taste it. "Let's go," she urged, excitement bubbling inside her. Marcus worked frantically, his fingers dancing across the console buttons. Lyra stood by the door, peering into the hallway, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The guttural shouts of the Zarth grew closer. "They're coming," she cried, her voice strained with tension. "Almost there," Marcus muttered, his brow furrowed in concentration. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, a dizzying blur of symbols. The door rattled violently, the metallic clang of Zarth claws scraping against the metal sending shivers down Lyra's spine. "Hurry," she urged, panic rising in her throat. The harsh, alien shouts were almost upon them. "Just a few more seconds," Marcus replied, his voice remarkably calm amidst the chaos. With a final keystroke, the console beeped, the screen glowing a reassuring green. "Got it! The alarms are down." Relief flooded through Lyra. "Let's go," she cried, a surge of renewed energy coursing through her. They burst out of the control room and into the dimly lit corridor, the emergency lights flickering overhead. Marcus grabbed her hand, pulling her along. "Stay close," he urged, his voice tight with urgency. They sprinted through the maze-like hallways, their footsteps echoing in the metallic space. Lyra glanced back, her heart leaping into her throat as she saw the Zarth gaining on them. Marcus pulled her into a narrow passageway. At the end, a large door loomed. He quickly punched in a code. The door hissed open, revealing a vast chamber filled with strange, pulsating machinery. In the center, a small, sleek ship gleamed under the flickering lights. "There!" Marcus exclaimed, his eyes alight with hope. "That's our escape." Lyra's heart soared. Freedom was so close, a tangible reality after what felt like an eternity of darkness. They ran towards the ship, the pounding of their boots on the metal floor echoing in the vast chamber. Just as they reached it, the alarms blared back to life, a deafening wail that filled the air. "They've reactivated the system!" Lyra cried, despair momentarily threatening to engulf her. "Get inside!" Marcus yelled, shoving her towards the open hatch. He followed close behind, slamming the door shut and sealing them within the ship's metallic embrace. "Start it up," he commanded, his voice strained. Panic clawed at Lyra's throat. "I don't know how." "Just follow the lights," Marcus instructed, his fingers flying over the controls. He pointed to a glowing green button. "Hit that." Lyra pressed the button. The ship hummed to life, a low thrum that vibrated through the floor. "Now what?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Throttle up. Pull that lever." Lyra obeyed, her hand shaking as she grasped the lever and pulled it towards her. The ship shuddered, then began to rise, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. They could hear the Zarth pounding on the hull, their frustrated roars echoing through the metal. With a final, powerful surge, the ship shot upwards, blasting through the ceiling of the chamber and into the violet twilight of the alien sky. Lyra gasped, staring at the planet shrinking below them, a swirling mass of purple and black. "We did it," she cried, tears of relief welling in her eyes. "Not yet," Marcus replied, his expression grim. "We have to get out of their range." He focused on the controls, navigating the ship through the alien sky, the Zarth base a distant, diminishing speck below. The feeling of victory was potent, exhilarating, but tinged with the knowledge that their escape was far from over. The rescue operation had left Lyra breathless, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She stood beside Marcus in the dimly lit room, the sounds of heavy footsteps and guttural shouts growing closer outside the door. The Zarth were coming. Marcus, brow furrowed in concentration, worked frantically at the console, his fingers dancing over the buttons. Lines of code scrolled across the screen in a dizzying blur. "Almost there," he muttered, his voice a low hum against the rising panic in Lyra's chest. The door rattled violently, the metallic clang of Zarth claws against the metal sending shivers down Lyra's spine. "They're almost here," she cried, her voice strained. "Just a few more seconds," Marcus replied, his voice remarkably calm amidst the growing chaos. With a final keystroke, the console beeped, the screen glowing a reassuring green. "Got it. The security system is down." Relief washed over Lyra. "Let's go." They burst out of the control room and sprinted through the dimly lit, maze-like corridors, the emergency lights flickering overhead. Marcus grabbed her hand, pulling her along. "Stay close," he urged, his voice tight with urgency. Lyra glanced back, her heart leaping into her throat as she saw the Zarth gaining on them. Marcus pulled her into a narrow passage, leading to a large door. He quickly punched in a code, and the door hissed open, revealing a vast chamber filled with strange, pulsating machinery. In the center, a small, sleek ship gleamed under the flickering lights. "There!" Marcus exclaimed, his eyes alight with hope. "That's our way out." Lyra's heart soared. Freedom was so close. They ran towards the ship, the pounding of their boots echoing in the vast chamber. Just as they reached it, the alarms blared back to life, a deafening wail that filled the air. "They've reactivated the system!" Lyra cried, despair momentarily threatening to overwhelm her. "Get inside!" Marcus yelled, shoving her towards the open hatch. He followed close behind, slamming the door shut and sealing them within the ship's metallic embrace. "Start it up," he commanded, his voice strained. Panic seized Lyra. "I don't know how." "Just follow the lights," Marcus instructed, his fingers flying over the controls. He pointed to a glowing green button. "Hit that." Lyra pressed the button. The ship hummed to life, a low thrum vibrating through the floor. She followed Marcus's rapid-fire instructions, pulling levers and pressing buttons, her hands shaking. The ship shuddered, then began to rise, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. They could hear the Zarth pounding on the hull, their frustrated roars echoing through the metal. With a final, powerful surge, the ship shot upwards, blasting through the ceiling of the chamber and into the violet twilight of the alien sky. Lyra gasped, staring at the planet shrinking below, a swirling mass of purple and black. "We did it," she cried, tears of relief welling in her eyes. "Not yet," Marcus replied, his expression grim. "We have to get out of their range." He focused intently on the controls, navigating the ship through the alien sky, the Zarth base a distant, diminishing speck below. The feeling of victory was potent, exhilarating, yet tinged with the knowledge that their escape was far from over. They were free from the base, but not yet free from the planet. The violet sky, once a symbol of imprisonment, now represented the unknown path to freedom. The violet sky, once a symbol of Lyra's confinement, now stretched above her as a path to the unknown. Marcus, his face grim, concentrated on navigating the ship through the alien atmosphere, the Zarth base a receding speck below. The thrill of victory was powerful, intoxicating, but tempered by the knowledge that their escape was far from over. They had escaped the base, but the planet still held them captive. Lyra, still breathless from the frantic escape, watched Marcus work the controls. His hands moved with practiced ease, adjusting dials and flipping switches, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We're not clear yet," he said, his voice tight with focus. "They'll have ships patrolling the upper atmosphere. We need to stay under their radar." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the swirling purple and black of the planet below. She felt a strange mix of exhilaration and fear. She was free from the confines of the Zarth base, but the vastness of space, the unknown dangers that lurked beyond their ship's thin hull, felt equally daunting. "We need to find a safe place to land," Marcus said, his voice breaking through her thoughts. "Somewhere we can regroup and plan our next move." He adjusted the ship's course, steering them towards a cluster of asteroids that shimmered in the distance. "There," he said, pointing. "We can hide among the rocks. It'll give us some cover while we figure out our next move." As they approached the asteroids, Lyra could see the jagged, irregular shapes, some small as pebbles, others large as mountains. Marcus skillfully navigated the ship through the dense field, weaving between the rocks, his hands steady on the controls. Finally, he found a small cave, hidden amongst the larger asteroids, and carefully maneuvered the ship inside. The darkness of the cave enveloped them, a welcome reprieve from the stark violet sky. Inside the cave, with the engines silent, the heavy silence descended. Lyra looked at Marcus, his face etched with exhaustion, but his eyes still alert, scanning the screens that displayed the surrounding space. "We're safe for now," he said, his voice low. "But we can't stay here forever. We need to find a way to contact the human outpost." Lyra nodded, her heart heavy. The human outpost, a beacon of hope in this alien world, felt impossibly distant. "How do we do that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. "We'll need to send a coded message," he said. "Hopefully, they'll be able to intercept it without alerting the Zarth." He turned to the communications panel, his fingers dancing over the controls. "It's a long shot, but it's our only hope." He worked in silence for a while, his brow furrowed in concentration. Finally, he looked up at Lyra, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "I've sent the message," he said. "Now, we wait." The waiting was agonizing. Every beep from the scanner sent Lyra's heart racing, every flicker of light on the control panel made her jump. The silence of the cave, once a comfort, now felt oppressive, filled with the weight of their uncertain future. After what felt like an eternity, the comms panel crackled to life. A voice, crisp and clear, filled the small cockpit. "This is the Mercury, responding to your distress signal. Identify yourselves." Relief flooded through Lyra, so potent it almost brought her to her knees. "This is Marcus," he replied, his voice trembling slightly. "We're human captives, escaped from the Zarth. We need assistance." "Understood," the voice replied. "We're en route to your location. Stand by." Lyra looked at Marcus, tears welling in her eyes. They had done it. They had survived. They were going home. But even as hope soared within her, she knew, deep down, that their journey was far from over. The violet sky, once a symbol of their imprisonment, now represented the unknown path to freedom, a path they would face together.